It is very important to minimize the kind of collateral damage and protecting civilization lives as well. And I would hope that Hamas decides to not starting to hide behind civilians and creating those circumstances that makes it even more difficult as well. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with every leader's views. But, you know, we have an opportunity to stand with Israel in this situation, and that's what I've decided to do.
Senator John Fetterman mangling the English language again and again before arriving at his destination. He stands with Israel. How many American hostages are still being held by the troglodytes in the Gaza? The celebrity chef, he's a celebrity chef, whatever that means. That's like being a TikTok star, really? A YouTube star. Not exactly Clark Gable, but, you know, I posted a video on YouTube. And 7 of Jose Andres' people killed while feeding the enemies of civilization, the terrorist army, the genocidal troglodytes of Hamas. And he said 3 of the people killed were British. 3 of them, he says, were international, whatever the hell that means. And 1 was Palestinian. And he talked about security people that they apparently had also.
17 members between the specialty security people we have.
What?
3 British individuals and 3 international crew plus 1 Palestinian, that they were targeted systematically, car by car.
What do you base that on? He's making this up. He's pulling it directly out of his celebrity rump. That's Jose Andres. 3 British, 3 international, whatever the hell that means. Aren't British people international? They're in Israel, in the Gaza. They're in the Middle East. That makes them international. If they're British and they're in America, that's another way you could use the word international correctly. And 1 Palestinian. Maybe he detonated himself and blew up the vehicle. It's hard to say. Yeah, they're systematically targeted. Based on what? And is that number 7, is that greater than the number of American hostages still being held? Or is that lesser than the number of American hostages still being held? You know, the savages murdered more than 1,200 people that day. They abducted, kidnapped more than 250 people to take them as hostages. They raped and tortured and murdered a whole lot of them. They say now they think they might be holding more than 130 people, maybe 6 to 8 Americans, but they can't say specifically. But I do know that between the number 6 and the number 8 is the number 7, and that is the number of Jose Andres celebrity chef people that were killed in an Israeli airstrike in a war zone. Maybe you shouldn't be driving around like, hey, we're off on the road to Ramallah, serving up some gourmet fun. What are you doing there? Honestly? And why aren't you serving the Russians gourmet food? You ridiculous people. And Joe Biden hasn't mentioned, as far as we can tell, the American hostages since March 7th at the State of the Union address. And where's our media? And where's our media covering the war in Ukraine? The war in Ukraine is completely ignored. Just like when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were bombing Libya for 8 months in a bombing campaign, one of many under Barack Obama, the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, who then went on to bomb 8 countries during his 8 years as president, which is a number greater than any president had dropped bombs on since World War II. But, he's got his Nobel Peace Prize at home. I think he probably laughs at it when he walks by it. One of his multi-million-dollar mansions is 500 million square foot mansions on the ocean. What a ridiculous person. And notice how, he tore down the Magnum PI mansion in Hawaii to rebuild a giant thing in its place. And everybody has completely ignored it. You can't even find a picture of his former Magnum PI mansion anywhere on the internet because information dominance. Isn't it amazing? Barack Obama went to Harvard Law School, didn't he? A lot of good that did us. Guess it worked out well for him. He's a billionaire. He flies private. He's on giant 300-foot yachts everywhere he goes. pay no attention to that. But Harvard University, this is great. The National Review has the story. Harvard University to offer segregated graduation ceremonies based on race, class, and sexuality. Race, class, and sexuality. Different. This is what liberalism has become. This is not liberalism. Truly amazing. But National Review has the story and the Washington Post doesn't because they don't report the news. Harvard plans to hold, listen to this, the various graduation ceremonies. Now, they call them celebrations. They're not graduation ceremonies. Because they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. They have segregated graduations because, make segregation fashionable again. And the left has in the United States of America. Listen to this. Again, maybe I should replace the word celebration with graduation because that's what it really is. Harvard plans to hold a disability graduation. That's people with disabilities. But I thought they were differently abled. And disability is a slur on people with abilities that are differently abled. So a disability celebration, a global indigenous celebration. Isn't everyone indigenous if it's global? My indigenous peoples came from the Basque territories and from Ireland. So I am born in America, in New York. I'm indigenous to the United States and New York, but my peoples are indigenous to the Basque territories and to Ireland. So what does that even mean? There is going to be an Asian American Pacific Islander Desi American celebration. That's a graduation, which they have an abbreviation for APIDA, right? That's APIDA. Oh, are you going to the APIDA? That's the A is Asian American. That should be AA, but that's Alcoholics Anonymous. The AP, Pacific Islander, it's a PI, Pacific Islander, and then DA for Desi American. What is Desi American? You're an offspring of Desi Arnaz? It's Desi American. Then they've got a first-generation low-income celebration. My family's been wealthy for generations. I'm the first generation of my family to be low income. All right, well, then you go to this graduation ceremony for first generation low income. What if you're first generation really wealthy, like a member of the Saudi royal family, and you're going to Harvard and you've given a lot of money to Harvard University? That's pretty amazing. So you got the first generation low income celebration. You have the lavender celebration. The lavender celebration, right? But don't confuse that with the Latinx celebration. They have a Latinx celebration where if you're Latin American and you have no gender and no genitalia and therefore vote Democrat, then you go to the Latinx celebration where they don't acknowledge that there are two genders.
Latinx.
That's right, or Latinx, as the case may be. Then there's the black celebration because they're racists. Then they have the Arab celebration. Isn't that amazing? Harvard University disability celebration. The global indigenous, makes no sense to have global and indigenous celebration. Asian American Pacific Islander Desi American, whatever the hell that is, celebration. First generation low income, nothing to brag about when you're graduating from Harvard University. I'm low. You know, how many people do you think will go to? I want to go to that one. That one's probably going to be the most fun. There'll be 5 people there. And they'll also be in the disability celebration, but it's because of their IQs. Isn't that amazing? The lavender celebration, obviously, for LGBTQ, QIAA plus ampersand pound sign dash. That is pretty amazing stuff. They will also have separate graduations for veterans. That might be the smallest one. That'll be 2 people, and I don't know, what is that? The veteran celebration. Just amazing. And then they say that the university will also hold a central commencement ceremony for students of all backgrounds. That's what they call college graduation. That's what it used to be. Hey, today's graduation day. You're graduating this year. Today's your graduation. Show up and march. Wear your funny hat. March down the thing. They got the songs. You get the sheepskin. You pose for a picture. But no, they've got to racially segregate it. They've got to celebrate it by heterosexual versus not heterosexual. Asian American, Pacific Islander, Desi American. I'm not even going to look that up because I don't care what a Desi American is. I'm going to assume it's descendants of Desi Arnaz, because what else could it be? The APIDA celebration, first generation low income, and Latinx, and lavender, and black, and Arab. Those are all separate graduation ceremonies. The school's not that big. It'll be a small number of people. You're going to hold one in a minivan. That's pretty amazing stuff. They are racists. Let's just say it out loud. Democrat family, Democrat Party. All right, let's take a phone call. Let's go to Chris calling from Baltimore, Maryland, where the harbor is not being cleared because Joe Biden sent all of our equipment to build a pier for Hamas in the Gaza. Chris, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Thank you for having me on. And wanted to touch on something that you brought up in the 10 o'clock hour. Kind of why are we funding both sides of both Ukraine and Israel-Hamas conflicts? And I think the American people just need to have a more populist view on who we consider allies and who we consider enemies, just overall, our entire global spectrum, because I find it very hard to believe that a nuclear power like Israel, which we pay out ridiculous amounts of money to every year, is somehow is not able to fend off a much smaller group of people who they gave money to in 2018, $15 million, and yet we're trying to figure out, where's the money going to go? I think we need to have a come to Jesus talk about who we support, how much we support, and not leave that up to elected officials, because we give out way too much money, and the United States needs to take care of the United States. And regardless of where they're at, I think we need to have a country-by-country check down of who we're aligned with, who we're not aligned with, and that's not going to match up with what congressional leaders and AIPAC and all of the other lobbyist organizations will agree to. And that's my 2 cents.
Well, I don't disagree with most of what you've said, and I think I detect your leanings, and you're entitled to your views, of course, because this is America, and I'm an American, and so are you, and you're entitled to your point of view when it comes to Israel and Gaza and all that. And I got to say, Chris, that I agree. We need to reassess and take a real deep look at who we support and why we support them, and we do give billions of dollars to Israel, and we give a great deal of money to Hamas as well, who are enemies of civilization, in my estimation. And I got to tell you, it's interesting the way you phrased a couple of things there, Chris, reminded me that last night I went to a happy hour on Capitol Hill at a restaurant, a bar called the Hawk and Dove. And it was hosted by the Special Operations Association of America. Right, and the SOAA, and the Special Operations Association of America, a number of people, the founder and some of the executives from the Special Operations Association. And I had a nice conversation with a career soldier, special operator, and he was talking about the very same thing that you're talking about, that we need to stop entangling ourselves in foreign wars, and the time of the neocons has passed. We need to stop funding everybody on all sides of everything, I guess, for the good of the military-industrial complex and nobody else. And I agree with much, even most of what you're saying, Chris. I am a supporter of Israel, and I'm virulently opposed to the radical Islamists in whatever form they take. But we do need to reassess, and you're right, and because of these idiotic agreements we come to, Israel is actually giving money to the people that would destroy Israel, and we're giving money to both sides, and we're $34 trillion in debt, and it's time that we pulled our heads out of our own rumpuses and started acting in our own interest. And you're right about Congress, and I'll even throw in AIPAC with you, even though I'm a huge supporter of Israel. We need to reassess the way that we do business and what we do to to support Israel and, to support Russia and Putin through energy policies and so on to help them fuel their war against Ukraine while we send, soon to be hundreds of billions, well over 100 billion now to Ukraine with the war that never ends. And our Secretary of State is nowhere to be found. Our diplomats are nowhere to be found. There are no calls for peace agreement in Ukraine. And, the never-ending war. It goes actually back to what Jack was talking about with 1984 and George Orwell, too. We're living in very dangerous times, and our leaders are very dangerous. So, Chris, listen, just keep thinking and keep absorbing information and be smart. And it sounds like you are. Nothing to worry about there. Thank you, Chris. Eden Pure is having their famous BOGO deal, buy one, get one deal on the Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifiers. When you buy one Eden Pure Thunderstorm, you get one for free. No matter how many you buy, you get an equal number for free. You buy two, you get two for free. If you buy six, you get six for free. The Thunderstorm will help completely eliminate any odor in your home, your office, even the worst odors, cigarette smoke, litter boxes, your mother-in-law's cooking, even Michael Moore. No match for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. The O3 molecules from the Eden Pure Thunderstorm seek out and destroy the odors even under and behind furniture. Nothing can hide from the Thunderstorm. And now is the time to order. Eden Pure's buy one, get one free deal. It's for a limited time only, so don't wait. With thousands of 5-star reviews online, you can check them yourself. It works like a champ. I've got two at home, humming along right now. People are buying several for around the entire home, even as gifts. Your uncle needs one. Your teenager needs one. Just go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code ChrisBogo, Chris, B-O-G-O. Buy one, get one. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ChrisBogo. Yeah, and, Chris, we could have a conversation for hours. I know we could. And I may not even agree with everything you had to say, and that's just great because we're Americans. All right? I may disagree with what you have to say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. And these are serious issues: life and death, war and peace, the future, the children. We ought to be having this discussion more frequently. We're having it here now. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Yeah, Harvard University with their racially segregated and sexual orientation segregated graduations. And how many different races are there? Well, let's check how many different graduations they're having at Harvard. And in the meantime, Biden's health department allocates $422,000 of our dollars to treat diabetes with Native American healing circles. Healing circles? That ought to treat diabetes. It's the ancient remedy. It's, honestly, they are an embarrassment to Western civilization. Thousands of years gone. Yeah, this diabetes story is quite remarkable, actually. The Department of Health and Human Services allocating $422,000 of our dollars, federal funding to the American Indian Health Service of Chicago to launch a program that aims to undo the damage of colonialism. As well as the damage of colonialism. Colonialism causes diabetes in Native Americans. These people are mentally ill and they're self-loathing. Cultural self-loathing is really the cornerstone, the bedrock of the Democrat Party today. That's right. You think $422,000 will do that? The undo the damage of colonialism? On the traumatized mind, body, and soul of the Native American population. Sure, colonialism did that. Now, what were the diabetes rates before the Europeans arrived in North America? Well, nobody knows because no written language, much less medicine. Well, they had medicine, but, it's a smoke and peace pipe and things like that. Also, this ridiculous story, and it's a well-written story. It's a wonderful story in the Free Beacon, but the Democrats, the Biden administration, put this out. It's their story, and they're sticking to it. It's the damage of colonialism. It turns out, now listen to this. See, we're going to have dancing to cure, this is what the money's going for, brilliant ideas like this. Going to have dancing and songs to fight diabetes because that ought to do it. Communal songs, music, dance, and Native American prayer to fight diabetes. Now, why would we do that to fight the damage of colonialism? Well, it explains here, American Indians have the highest prevalence of diabetes in the country. So we should definitely do what they do. More than 16% of Native communities have been diagnosed with the disorder. I think it's probably individuals. The communities aren't diagnosed with diabetes, but the individuals are, which is often caused by obesity. I think we should go back to the Latinx thing then. It might be microaggressions causing, that's the colonial thing, I guess, causing diabetes in the Native American community. The Native American community has the highest prevalence of diabetes in the country, so we should definitely do what they do. I've got another idea. We should find the people with the lowest incidence of diabetes in the country, and then Native Americans should do what they do. Probably does not involve dance, song or dance, I'm thinking. So they have the highest prevalence of diabetes in the country. We're going to pay to find out what they do about diabetes, which was caused by colonialism, traumatizing the mind, body, and soul of the Native American population.
My papa had high cheekbones like all of the Indians do.
I wonder if that racist has diabetes. We should look up and see, because that might be another link to her Native American past. Could be. Your Democrat Party. They're very unwell. And these are our tax dollars. We're $34 trillion in debt. You want to know why? One example is we just gave $422,000 to the American Indian Health Service in Chicago. The grant claims that the healing potential of Native ceremonies is unknown to Western medicine. Now, if they had zero incidence of diabetes, that might be an interesting proposition. But since they have the highest incidence of diabetes, that makes no sense at all. It's the opposite of sense. And we're $34 trillion in debt. Can you please tuck it away? Put it back. Just amazing. Your Democrat Party. Man, oh man. Are you familiar with the ESPN story? The story broke out of ESPN. They have a reporter, anchor woman named Sage Steele. Sage Steele. It's a pretty cool name, actually. Sage Steele is, she does interviews for ESPN, and I think she's not even there anymore, right? She's no more. I think she's not with ESPN. I don't watch all that much ESPN, but she's an American television anchor, former co-host of Sports Center on ESPN, and hosted Sports Center on the road, other sporting things, Super Bowl, the Masters, NBA Countdown, and all kinds of stuff. ESPN and ABC, which is a left-wing front group for the Democrat Party. Sage Steele did an interview with Joseph Robinette Biden March 31st of 2021. You know what March 31st is, don't you? It's Transgender Day of Visibility. It's not always Easter Sunday, but it's always the Democrats dressing up like their grandmothers, or, like the psycho killer in the movie Psycho. It's, Anthony Perkins. We should call it Anthony Perkins Day. March 31st is from now on Anthony Perkins Day, since Anthony Perkins was the psycho killer in the Alfred Hitchcock classic Psycho. And he dressed like his mother. Now, Sage Steele was talking to Joe Biden on Anthony Perkins Day, March 31st, 2021, and asked him really pressing, probing questions like this.
Mr. President, thank you for being here as we get set for a wonderful day in sports. Opening day for America's national pastime.
He's scratching his head. What's our national pastime? Sage Steele and Joe Biden on Anthony Perkins Day.
I know you're a sports fan. I know the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, is a sports fan.
Not
you're
a doctor.
From Scranton, Pennsylvania. She's from Philadelphia. And you've described her as a diehard Phillies fan. I mean, we know how intense and passionate Philly fans are. So can you give us a glimpse when Dr. Biden is watching Phillies games. What is she like?
You don't talk to her. You don't talk to her.
It's what is she like? That's a good question. What is she like when she's watching Phillies games? Now what we've learned is that this whole interview was scripted and coordinated between the senior executives at ESPN/ABC. You remember during the January 6th hearings on Capitol Hill, the Democrats brought in the former president of ABC and a producer at ABC to produce the event for him as a television show. And then ABC didn't report that because there are a lot of very corrupt people in the world, and a lot of them are at ABC and in the Democrat Party. But I repeat myself, Sage Steele with the scripted Q&A with Joe Biden.
What I would do to be a fly on the wall with the First Lady yelling and screaming at the TV with the dog right there. I imagine you just have to walk out of the room at times, right?
Well, I do, but one of the things is that, it's interesting. I thought I was a pretty good athlete in high school.
You weren't.
The real athletes in our family are the women.
Yeah, like your granddaughter that you don't acknowledge? And it's now here's what we learned. This was all coordinated. Here it's the last one from Joe Biden and Sage Steele on Anthony Perkins Day 2021. Now, he had just become president on January 20th of 2021. He had just been inaugurated president January 20th of 2021. And after campaigning from his basement and not leaving in the news media, did the campaign for him. And here we are on the 31st of March, Anthony Perkins Day, and now Sage Steele has come out, but here's the rest of it.
Although we know that back in the day, President Biden was getting it done on the football field at the University of Delaware. But I like that you're focusing on the women.
We all know back in the
your
day.
Family.
Tara Reid.
Well, they are. I tell you what, and it's about time they get paid.
Yeah, Navy Joan Roberts is your granddaughter. How old is she now? 6 years old? She's never been invited to your, because your crackhead Russian hooker, Dayton stripper, knocker-upper. All right, now Sage Steele came out this week on Fox Digital, did an interview, and explained that the whole thing was a scripted television show, that they told her to take these pages, read these words, do not deviate. And Joe Biden had his responses. Joe Biden, he doesn't do press conferences, but the last one he did, couple of times, he's got the cue cards with the pictures of the White House correspondents and the questions that they're going to ask and the answers that he's going to give. This is Soviet-style propaganda that we're being fed by ABC and even ESPN. They're supposed to do sports. Why is he even doing an ESPN interview? To talk about Jill Biden watching a sporting event. Now, here's Sage Steele this week on Fox Digital explaining what was really going on, that interview, shortly after Joe Biden was inaugurated.
It was so structured, and I was told, you will say every word that we write out. You will not deviate from the script, and go. Word. Like every single question was scripted, gone over dozens of times by many executives, editors and executives. Absolutely.
ABC, ESPN, the New York Post has the story today, and the Washington Post doesn't because it's a propaganda outlet of the Democrat Party and not a journalistic organization. They perform acts of journalistic gratification upon Joe Biden and every Democrat, and just give him a minute with Barack Obama, and he'll limp away. Now, ex-ESPN host reveals every single question in Biden interview was scripted by the network executives in coordination, no doubt, with the White House and the Democrat Party. Sage Steele can now at long last reveal the truth.
I was on script and was told not to deviate. It was very much, this is what you will ask, this is how you will say it. No follow-ups. No follow-ups. Next.
No follow-ups. Next. Say these words. Ask about Dr. Jill, what's she like when she watches. And these ABC execs, they hang out with the Democrats at Martha's Vineyard and the, Christmas at St. Bart's where they worship Satan and the usual stuff. Sage Steele, formerly of ESPN, I guess she's never going back.
I knew that this was a lot bigger than just the wonderful editors that I worked with.
Wonderful.
This went up to the fourth floor, as we said, that we're all the bosses, the top executives, the decision makers are the president of our company.
So it goes up to the big bosses, the highest bosses, the ABC network executives with scripted questions and scripted answers in coordination with the Democrat Party. This is not journalism. It's not even sports. It's barely television. It's propaganda. Soviet style, North Korean style. Now, it has an American patina because we have higher quality everything in terms of putting television on the air. But, just amazing. Now, let's go to number 17, soundbite number 17. So that's what you get in a box of Cracker Jacks. And the Democrat Party is so corrupt. How corrupt are they? All of this is honestly third world, Soviet-style, communist, totalitarian style, fake journalism. And it's sports journalism, but it's still journalism nonetheless. Speaking of which, my old pal Wolf Blitzer at CNN was on the television at CNN. It's cable, and it's a disgrace to journalism. And they're doing the old, Donald Trump says mean things about migrants. They like to say migrants. When you know that what we're talking about is illegal aliens, often gang members that murder young women, like Ruby Garcia in Michigan, where Donald Trump was the other day, and that's what he was talking about. And Laken Riley in Georgia, who was murdered by an illegal alien from Venezuela. Ruby Garcia murdered by an illegal alien from Mexico. And these are the open borders, the consequences of Democrat Party policies. But on CNN, it sounds like this.
Trump once again used brutal, incendiary rhetoric to describe immigrants. Here's what he said yesterday. Listen.
Lie.
It's a border bloodbath, and it's destroying our country. They're country changing, country threatening, and they're country wrecking. We're going to end up with the largest deportation in American history. They're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. I'll use the word animal because that's what they are. We don't want them coming into our country with contagious diseases, and they have it.
He said that's how Trump was describing migrants, right? That's not actually the way he was describing migrants at all. Here is what President Trump actually said in Michigan when he was talking about these illegal aliens murdering young women, brutally, savagely smashing the skull in of Laken Riley until her head was unrecognizable, and shooting Ruby Garcia so many times that he had to get out of the car, walk around the car, and shoot her more times while she was bleeding out on the ground.
The 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia who was barbarically murdered by an illegal alien animal. The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. Nancy Pelosi told me that. She said, please don't use the word animal, sir, when you're talking about these people. I said, I'll use the word animal because that's what they are.
Now, that's not the soundbite that CNN played. But then on the Wolf Blitzer show, there was an interesting moment. It continued. There was Scott Jennings, who was on as a guest and will never be invited back, was a George W. Bush White House official.
When he says these immigrants are animals, they're not humans, what does that suggest? I mean, isn't that brutal? Shouldn't people be condemning that?
I listened to the entire tape. He was specifically talking about the person who murdered Laken Riley in Georgia. And to be honest with you, Wolf, if somebody murders another human being, I think they deserve to be called animals.
Smashes her head in. But no, he's talking about migrants. And then you edit out all the context and you say he's referring to all migrants as animals. Now, President Trump is often less precise with the language than perhaps he should be. But nevertheless, and notwithstanding any fair hearing on what the president said, which is not what CNN granted him, would reveal that he was not referring to migrants as animals, but murderers, illegal alien murderers whose first act entering the country is illegal, and then they murder a 22-year-old woman in Georgia, Laken Riley, and a 25-year-old woman in Michigan, Ruby Garcia. And The news media won't even tell you how many times he shot her. But they don't talk about that. Lies of omission, not journalism, political propaganda. ESPN, CNN, MSDNC, we played Joe Scarborough earlier. We're being lied to a lot these days. I like the truth. I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. Bill Maher, HBO commie, launching his own podcast network. He's got a podcast now where he just smokes pot the whole time. And some dude who's, in recovery from drugs said, well, I want to come on your podcast, but can you not smoke pot while I'm on? And he said, no, that's a deal breaker. You won't come on my podcast because I'm smoking pot the whole time. Bill Maher to launch podcast network Sage Steele to host first show. But that's nothing. Listen to this. Breitbart reporting that our Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has announced Ukraine will join NATO. They're in the middle of a war with Russia. If a NATO member is under attack by Russia, Article 5 of the NATO Charter requires that all NATO nations jump in to wage war against Russia. And our chief diplomat, I remember when Hillary was chief diplomat and we bombed all those countries, and she said when Gaddafi was killed by his own people, we saw he died. Remember that? She was very proud of that. But now our chief diplomat is announcing in the middle of a war involving Ukraine and Russia that Ukraine will join NATO. And so if Ukraine joins NATO while the war is ongoing, then Article 5 would have to be invoked. And I think he may have said NATO will welcome Ukraine in eventually. Did he say the word eventually? Yes. Well, when is he working on a peace agreement? Because nobody's working on hundreds of thousands have been killed in this war, and nobody's calling for a peace agreement. He's our chief diplomat, but I got to tell you, I didn't even get to the Chilean gangs in Michigan looting everybody's homes. Chilean now. Of course, that mass murderer that was convicted of murdering 11 people in Chile was captured in New Hampshire working at somebody's house. No problem. Once again, I've run out of time. I'm going to have to come back for more tomorrow.